from the hill country of Texas. This is One Radio Network. And a very pleasant good evening to you. This is OneRadioNetwork.com. It's a Monday, the 23rd of February, 2009. This is Patrick Timpone, and it's very, very nice to be here with you. We have another great week lined up for you. This week on OneRadioNetwork.com, Wednesday, The Real World of Money with Andrew Goss. And boy, does it get silly out there in the world of money, as you've probably figured out already. On Thursday, I asked Dr. Massey, and he's going to be here. He's a good one from Fredericksburg, Texas, an MD that's gone straight, and he'll be able to call up and ask questions. Tomorrow night, we're going to be talking about the Constitution and some folks that will teach us how to take the Constitution into the courtroom if we ever need to go there. Hope we don't. And also all about gardening and homesteading tomorrow night. And then later on in the week, we're going to talk about the whole mouth, the proprioception and the bite, and how that all thing is hooked together with the jaw and cranial, and pretty cool stuff with a gentleman up in Pennsylvania. So we have a full week lined up for you. So you join us anytime you can. Here's a phone number, 888-663-6386. Well, we're looking forward to talking with the man tonight, because we are very proud to be able to have him on every few months when we talk him into it. He's in the South Carolina area, and it's Andreas Moritz, one of our favorites. Andreas, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, nice to have you. Yeah, we've already had a bunch of emails. People said, well, I'm glad Andreas is in. I want to talk to him. Well, you do quite a bit of consultations, right? On the telephone, that's how you spend your time?
Right, I'm still doing that, yes.
Uh-huh. And are you seeing any kinds of trends or similar things over the years? Do they change much?
I think they are coming in phases. In the last couple of months, I have had mostly terminal cancer patients calling me up. So it's, sometimes I get, like, for a couple of months, just people for heart problems, high blood pressure problems. Now I'm just getting cancer patients. So it's really strange that, and I now have a phase where just diabetics turn up. So I don't know why this is, but, it happens to happen.
How do you think all of the stuff going on in the world, we know it affects our health. Give us some of your ideas on the money thing and jobs and all that, and how this is all tied in with our health.
I think it is completely tied in with our health. A lot of people respond to the current crisis with a great deal of anxiety, and that translates into very powerful changes in their body. I get a lot of people who are so worried that literally the body is starting to malfunction. And you see that it translates into digestive problems, foremost of all. They feel it in their stomach. They can no longer digest food very well. They get bloated, and then they get symptoms of pain or symptoms of distension and, again, anxiety in the body. And so what is happening is that people perceive the current situation in a negative way. And because they see it negatively, they could theoretically see it in a positive light, and that's the power of perception, but they see it in a negative way, and so they see the destructiveness of it, and then they literally translate that into the biochemistry that is becoming destructive in our body. So we produce two sets of chemicals, some that are enhancing our well-being and others that diminish it. And so if you produce, for example, stress hormones on a regular basis, not just when you're facing a difficult moment where you have to fight or run away, which is the fight or flight response, for which we are supposed to make those stress hormones, but many people make them all the time now. That means they're producing cortisol, they're producing adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cholesterol, which is, by the way, a very powerful stress hormone. Most people don't refer to it as a stress hormone, but it is a stress hormone, and it's a healing hormone. So if you produce too much of any of them, then it can create a whole effect of changes in our bodies, such as suppressing the immune system, cortisol, for example, or other, adrenaline, obviously enhancing the circulation in the peripheral parts of the body, in the muscles and in the bones, and that allows you to run away, but it doesn't allow you to get enough blood in your gastrointestinal tract. So you don't digest your food well anymore. Under stress, literally the digestion stops.
Boy, that's so interesting. Let us invite the listeners in. Here's a number, 888-663-6386. 888-663-6386. For the shy among you, Patrick at OneRadioNetwork.com. That's the email with Andreas Moritz, who's been in the healthcare arena for 35 years, and he says probably some lifetimes before that. His website is Ener-Chi, that's ENER-Chi.com. Ener-Chi, ENER-Chi.com. He has lots of books and some cool products there. He also has a revised edition of the Amazing Liver and Gallbladder Flush, one of my favorite books. Cancer is Not an Accident, Simple Steps to Total Health, lots of books. He's a busy man, and he talks to people, has consultations where you can arrange with him. And so he does interesting work, and it's always a joy to have him here. So that is very interesting, Andreas, about the stress and the blood and the digestion, because I was going to ask you how that all ties in. So when we're stressed out and we think we need to run away from a tiger or something, then the blood then leaves the digestive tract, and then we eat anyway, probably, and then it doesn't work.
Yes, and a lot of people eat emotionally when that happens. So they are running out of energy. They're looking for foods that immediately can get the sugar level up, and so they start eventually craving those kinds of foods. The cells will not get energy from those types of foods and will crave more of the same. So the cells actually become nervous, they become anxious, they become irritable. Every single cell can produce adrenaline and noradrenaline and cortisol. So all the stress hormones that our adrenal glands can produce, the cells can produce the same. And therefore you will start getting nervousness on a cellular level. Most people don't think in terms of that. They think, well, the cells are just like little machines and they are all obeying the larger machine, which we call the body. And somehow this whole thing is working like a machine, but that's not how it functions. The cells in our body have a consciousness to them. They feel, they have emotions, they send signals that are comprised of enzymes and also light signals, as it was recently discovered, to the heart, to the brain, to every other cell in the body. So every cell knows what every other cell is up to. So if the liver cells, for example, become stressed because you are eating certain kinds of foods that are contaminated, or you're taking medications, medical drugs, which always interferes with liver functions, and it is contaminating the liver, particularly the bile ducts of the liver, so they start getting clogged up. You start making intrahepatic gallstones. That inhibits the bile flow from the liver into the small intestine. Then you don't digest your food well because you need bile to digest food, so less bile you make, the less you're capable of digesting your food. And therefore you have a lot of undigested food, less absorption of nutrients to the cells. The cells will cry out and say, "Where is my food?" So they start complaining, and the complaint is basically nervousness, anxiousness. You feel stressed from the inside out. Something triggers more stress from the outside and that comes into the body, then that can be too much for you to handle. A lot of people start eating emotionally, so they are starving inside. They're looking for a satisfaction from the outside because it's just life is becoming too stressful. Then it causes more digestive problems, and then eventually they develop an illness.
Wow. Is it? What kinds of foods can we eat if we just really need to eat something, whether emotionally or we feel like we're hungry but we're stressed? Is it best just not to eat anything, or
the best is to, for example, you could drink a glass of water and you might find that the stress levels immediately calm down. Because the blood chemistry, is such that when you're under stress, everything tightens up in the body, and the blood becomes thicker. So if you thin the blood, if you drink a glass of water, it's a diuretic, so it immediately causes thinness of the blood. You may start relaxing because of that. So you also you create a dilution of the stress hormones in the blood. So that's a very good thing too. So overall, your irritation level will go down. We now know that you can lower the blood pressure, which, by the way, goes up when you're under stress. You can lower the blood pressure simply by drinking a glass of water. Now, once you have done that and you feel a little calmer, then you can eat something. If you eat something right after you're sort of angry or upset or anxious, you're not going to digest.
Not going to do well. When we get those hunger pains, is that a good sign, and is that a time when it is important for us to eat when we get that real hunger?
If it's real hunger, then definitely. That's a signal that your body requires more nutrients. If you don't give those nutrients to the body will start digesting itself. That can be very uncomfortable.
I hate it when that happens.
So that's called starvation.
Right.
So you don't really want to get there. But if this is not a real hunger sensation, it can be because your body is digesting waste products. Your stomach is breaking down some waste products that have been accumulated in the pit of the stomach. And when that is being attacked by the body is digesting that, trying to dissolve it or break it up, then you may get gas and you may sort of get burps and you feel like something is bubbling in your stomach that is uncomfortable, and that is not real hunger. That is like the body's, you may feel, I want to eat something, so I stop this process of cleansing.
Yeah. Let's take this call. 888-663-6386 with Andreas Moritz. It's a Monday Night Live here, OneRadioNetwork.com. Hi, what is your first name? Where are you calling from?
John from Florida.
Can you speak up, John?
Yes. I had a quick question for Andreas. Good evening.
Hi, John.
Hi. I don't know if you had any theories regarding lipomas in the body.
Yes. Lipomas are basically fat deposits that the skin is trying to get rid of when the liver is not able to do that.
Okay.
And so most of the lipomas, they would disappear once the liver bile ducts are completely cleaned up and the body can retrieve or take back or dissolve those exit substances. Basically, lipomas are formed when there are certain kinds of toxins that are kept neutral by fatty substances. And when the liver is not able to remove the fat compounds in the body, and they're recycling, they're sort of recirculating. For example, if you ate a chicken, and you would have a blood test done right after that, and you would take a fair amount of blood out of your body, and you would put it in a little test tube. What you will find within a couple of minutes is that 1/3 of the blood sample will have fat floating on top of it. That means 1/3 of the whole blood sample will be fat. So a lot of the fat that people eat, they think, well, it's all going to be just fine, I'm going to digest it. No, it's ending up in your bloodstream within a half an hour, 45 minutes. And that's the issue that the liver doesn't cope with very well. because it would have to remove that from the blood, from the bloodstream, but it's very, very unsuccessful when there's so much fat floating about it. And when the liver bile ducts are clogged up anyway, then that uptake is diminished, and then the body will have to dump fat into the connective tissues, where they will make their way eventually through into the skin area. And then it's just a matter of time for those things to pop up and come out through the skin. So there are certain tiny red blood vessels that in the same process become clogged up, and then it shows up as red, these red things that are, some people have them all over the body.
So the best way to get rid of that then would be to, flush the liver and gallbladder?
That's correct. The liver is primarily responsible for keeping the blood clean and healthy and balanced. And the second most important thing is not to eat those kinds of foods that are directly involved in clogging up the bile ducts, and also you're turning basically fatty substances toward diverting them into the skin.
Have you ever done a liver flush, John?
Yes, I have. I've done one, and I wasn't sure if I needed to do more or not.
Yes, it's good to not stop then, because once you have opened up the liver bile ducts, there will be more stones even coming from the back parts of the liver, from the rear ends of the liver, moving forward to the frontal areas where the exiting bile ducts are. There are two major bile ducts that are found near the exit, where the common bile duct is formed. Right. And these two bile ducts, they can hold a lot of stones. And once you open them up and you release stones, then immediately within 2-3 days, more stones from the rear parts are traveling towards these two exiting bile ducts, and they clog them up again, sometimes even more than before. So you want to make sure that you keep cleansing the liver until no more stones are coming from the back parts of the liver and traveling forward. That means the liver is clean.
How often? Every couple of weeks is okay? Or?
Yes, 2, 3, 4 weeks. I usually recommend 3 to 4 weeks.
In between each one?
Yes.
But you want to stay with it then, because otherwise it could be even more problems.
Yes.
One question I have for Andreas, too, is that I did do a follow-up one, and I didn't get as many stones on the follow-up one several weeks later.
Yes, there are two reasons for that, usually. One is that you open the first biliary tree, which is usually the one that gives in and releases stones readily. The second biliary tree doesn't. It tends to be more stuck. Basically, the stones are sitting there, they're tighter, they are bigger, and they don't open up very easily. So it may be that you, during the first cleanse, you cleared up the first biliary tree and you haven't opened the second one. And that means temporarily, like for one cleanse, you may not have as many stones, and you'll find that when the second one opens, you may have even more stones than the first one.
Okay.
The second reason is that if a person doesn't cleanse the colon after the liver flush, you may have passed more stones, but they didn't come out during the colonic irrigation. That's why it's so important to do a colonic irrigation after the liver flush, or a colema. If you don't know what a colema board is, you can look up at my website and you can check one out. It's basically cleaning out the entire colon. During a liver flush, almost every person has some stones that are not coming out during after the liver flush. So you want to clean out the colon so every single stone is being released.
So you want us to do a colonic or a colema 1 or 2 days after the flush?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, folks, that I have used Andreas Moritz's protocol out of his book, and it's been the most successful one that I've tried, and I've tried a few of them around, and so I recommend it. If you just try his instructions exactly, I think you'll have good results. And the best way to do it is get this book, The Amazing Liver and Gallbladder Cleanse, the book.
It's called The Amazing Liver and Gallbladder Flush.
Oh, I'm sorry, Flush, the book. And I think, do you have a revised version now, too?
No, that's the updated.
That's the updated version on your website. But folks can get that on Ener-Chi.com. Follow those directions, and I think you'll have a good experience. 22 minutes after the hour. More calls, 888-663-6386. Hi, what's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, this is Jim in Upland, California.
Hi, Jim. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to make a comment. Do the hospitals and pharmaceutical companies really want us to be well?
Is that a comment?
That's a question.
Oh, that's a question. Okay.
Sounded like a comment too, but that's okay.
Well, they're a business, so they're in there for the money, obviously, because they have to really make the shareholders happy, and they have to make a lot of money to be able to produce a lot more of those drugs. If you know how big the markup is on certain drugs, on the most common drugs, and that's ranging between 50,000 to 300, in some cases to 600,000%. So there's a lot of money to be made. Their vested interest is only to make money, and they have already stated that on many occasions. So you cannot expect that they have the intention to actually make people healthy, because if they really made people healthy, they would be out of business. So it's important to understand that you don't go to people or places that are there to make sure that people don't get quite healthy, that they are only stopping their symptoms so that people are happy for a moment, but they will come back, because once as soon as you treat a symptom, you suppress it. You cannot you cannot heal a symptom without suppressing it. That means you have to stop it somehow at its track, and drugs are designed to do that. So the very design of something that suppresses something in the body is not going to heal anyone. And if you don't heal the real issue, the root cause of the problem, and you're only fixing the symptom, you are bound to develop a secondary problem that is going to be worse than the previous one. And that's why you have also so many side effects with these drugs, because they will generate, simply by suppressing one thing, they are bound to destroy or destruct something else. For example, painkillers, which are now becoming a leading cause of heart disease. So you may stop a pain on a regular basis because you have these recurring headaches, for example, and then you develop a congestive heart problem. Or you have like an infection and you take an antibiotic. Obviously, that will kill the germs, but it doesn't really stop the disease, because the germs were only attracted into the body because there is some contamination, there are some toxins that the body is trying to get rid of. It cannot get rid of them naturally, so it will engage bacteria. Bacteria only go into a contaminated body. They don't infect healthy cells. They can only infect unhealthy cells that are already half dead or that are not functioning very well, that need to be disposed of. So just like an apple falling from the tree, you know that after a couple of days there will be bacteria on it and it will start smelling. It will start being fermented. That's a natural occurrence. So to blame the bacteria, obviously, medicine says, well, we kill the germs and then the person can go home, not really knowingly. They know that the person has to come back eventually because there will be a reinfection.
Yeah.
So that's why you have one thing after another, and if you have suppressed the infection maybe 5, 10, 20 times, you are ready to develop something far more serious, such as cancer. And that's why antibiotics are now becoming a leading cause of cancer.
Right. Now, you were talking about water. If your blood pressure goes up, to drink some water. Now, is that assuming that you have a healthy and normal heart?
Well, the heart itself is not the issue. If you have, the heart itself is a very, very strong pump, and the pipes that lead into the heart, the blood vessels, the arteries, if they get thicker, if you have eaten, let's say, a lot of protein, animal proteins, the proteins will thicken the bloodstream, which puts a lot of stress on the heart by itself. then the body will try to dump the protein, dump it into the connective tissues, which causes problems on the cellular level. So the body will try to convert those proteins into collagen fiber, which is a fibrous form of protein, and build it into the blood vessel wall, into the basal membranes of the blood vessel walls. That makes the blood vessel walls stiff. And so once you have stiffer blood vessel walls, the blood pressure will increase, and then that puts a lot of extra workload on the heart. So then the heart eventually will become tired. If you want to make sure that the heart is functional, fully functional, it's important to make changes to the diet that doesn't cause problems to the heart, blood vessels, or the coronary blood vessels.
And what kinds of foods are you suggesting are hard on the heart and the blood pressure, Andreas?
Basically all animal proteins. That means chicken, fish, eggs are also known, and any protein that is heating the body. Just the other week, there was an announcement about a new study, and that sent shockwaves through the medical community. They don't quite want to acknowledge that yet, but it was shown that the consumption of meat products has caused an absolute massive increase of blood cancers, leukemia, and especially among children. And another study came out a couple of days later than that. Prostate cancer rises with the consumption of meat products by 42%. So that's a massive increase simply from eating animal proteins. So they are not just causing prostate or blood cancers, they cause many other health problems, particularly heart problems. So congestive heart problems arise particularly when you eat foods that are causing lymph congestion, and all those foods, they are never completely digested. If you eat a chicken, for example, you can only digest up to perhaps 15 to 20% if you're really, really healthy. The rest of the 80% cannot be digested, simply because the concentration of hydrochloric acid in your stomach is very, very, very low compared to a carnivorous animal like a cat. So if the cat eats the chicken, it can even dissolve the bones. If you eat the chicken, you can only digest up to 20%. So you have 80% undigested chicken in your intestines, which will have to be decomposed. And the decomposing bacteria, they produce poisons. They're called nitrosamines or cadaverins or putrescines. These are carcinogens. They are very, very powerful cancer-producing chemicals and substances. In addition to these undigested proteins or degenerated proteins, the problem is that there are additives in the meat. So if you have pink meat, you know that it's caused by preservatives, which are carcinogens. These are nitrites and nitrates. And so they are coloring the meat red or pink, and that is not their natural color. The meat would look gray or greenish, and you would not touch it. You would think something is wrong with it, so they color it. And these coloring agents are extremely cancerous. So we get a lot of problems, because of that too. Now, all of those poisons, they will cause lymphatic congestion in the middle part of your abdomen. That will be the first place that will take a rounded shape. That means an extension. It will become edemic. And so the lymph system there is directly connected to the chest area through a tube. It's called the thoracic duct. That's the main lymph drainage duct. So when the lymph vessel in the belly area is getting clogged up, the thoracic duct gets clogged up. That one is draining the heart. So if you are basically not digesting food very well, you clog up the lymph system and you prevent the drainage of metabolic waste products such as lactic acid and uric acid and urea, ammonia, and other acids from the heart itself. That can cause a lot of problems to the heart muscle. In addition, eating any of these foods, the meat products, will clog up the blood vessels, the tiny capillary walls, becoming thicker and thicker with these proteins, so they don't nourish the heart muscle properly anymore, and the heart becomes weaker because of that as well. And in addition, if there is any damage to any of the blood vessels, that means there are little wounds and lesions created because of the accumulated protein, they will start accumulating cholesterol in order to patch up these wounds. Cholesterol is a stress hormone, as I mentioned earlier. It is responsible for healing up wounds. It is immediately going to areas where there are little lesions or wounds and will patch them up. So then you have a layer of cholesterol building up inside the artery wall, in addition to the external the external protein layers built up there, stiffening the blood vessel. So you damage the blood vessel internally, externally, and if there's a blood clot coming out of one of those wounds, you have a heart attack or a stroke. Now that's perfectly preventable.
Now, what about your? How important is it your pH in the body?
The pH?
Yeah.
The pH is different in different parts of the body. You have a different pH in your mouth, in your small intestine, in your large intestine, in your liver, and different organs. And so it is important to have acid areas and alkaline areas. Now, for example, you can disturb the acid-alkaline balance immediately by eating or ill combining certain foods. For example, if you ate a chicken, which requires an acid environment, that means you have to produce pectin, hydrochloric acid to digest the chicken, and then you eat some starch food like potatoes or rice or some bread with it, that requires an alkaline environment, so you cannot digest either of them because you're now you're creating complete confusion within the stomach itself. And then you cancel out these digestive secretions, and neither of the foods will be digested, and hence you will get a lot of fermented food. That means it will start decomposing, produce gases, and creating toxins. And the meat will be deputrified, and you produce the nitrosamines and other contaminants. So all of that will enter the lymphatic system and clog up your colon, which may then backwash some of the waste into the upper part of the body, which then clogs up perhaps your throat area. You may start getting tooth decay. You may start getting bad breath. Your ear ducts may get clogged up. You don't hear as well anymore. Or they go into the eye sockets. They start putting pressure. A lot of fluid and a lot of stagnated substances and toxins will sit behind the eyes, and it can cause eye problems. Or they go up into the hair follicles, and then the hair will fall out. So there are many, many different problems that can arise simply because you didn't digest your food well, or you ate foods that were not really supportive of your body.
Andreas, on an ongoing basis, if we're testing our urine pH, for example, a lot of people want us to get 6.5 to 7.0. Is it realistic to stay in that range, and is that optimal?
No, if you try to take certain things that will immediately get your pH into an alkaline level of the urine, then what you will develop is kidney stones. Mm-hmm. So you need an acid urine. So don't try to manipulate that. So it's important to use food as the regulatory mechanism.
So the pH is going to go up and down then? It's going to go up and down?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. There are natural fluctuations, and sometimes you have to excrete more minerals because you have an excess of them, and sometimes you don't, and so that will change the pH of your urine. So, in the early, 25 years ago, I was hooked to the idea, if we bring our urine back to the alkaline level or to an alkaline level, then that will show that the rest of the body is becoming alkaline.
Right.
And then once we are more alkaline, then the rest of the body functions better. I had to give up on that.
Yeah, we're finding that more and more. We've been talking to people. It just didn't make sense to try to keep it up in that alkaline range. It doesn't seem normal.
No, it's not. We do need both types of foods, but there are some extreme acid-forming foods that are robbing our body of minerals.
Yeah.
And so these are cadaver foods. That means dead animals that cannot be brought back to life. When you cook them, when you heat them, they coagulate. They basically destroy the three-dimensional structure of the protein, and that is very, very, very hard on the body.
And the condition of most meats that are sold today, 95% of them, they're other than the best food by the time they get to the market.
Again, even if it's organic and free range, it's still dead. And there's still not enough hydrochloric acid in the human stomach to digest them. We are not cats, fortunately. Carnivorous animals sleep between 18 and 20 up to 22 hours. So if you look at, I lived in Africa and observed cats, and in the big cats, and the lion, for example, and they sleep easily 22 hours a day. So they're not active animals. They're only there for procreation, keeping the ecological balance, and eat themselves packed full with that food. It will sit in their stomach, but it is eaten fresh, basically, almost alive.
Oh, sure.
And they have a completely different stomach. The secretions are absolutely so concentrated that if we had that, we would say, well, ours is watered down. It's literally diluted to only about 20% of that of a carnivorous animal. So if we eat the same animal food, then our body will basically have to deal with the burden of most of it being undigested. And unfortunately, some of the protein will end up in your bloodstream almost right away. Because protein.
One more question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been reading a little bit about fluoride and aspartame. To me, it seems like those two are killer additives that they put into our water and food.
Okay, yeah, John, we just did a show on those, Andreas, and boy, both of those are not good substances, are they, Andreas?
No, I mean, these aspartame, that's why Coca-Cola is trying to get out of that, because there are too many lawsuits coming at them, because they have known it for all along that aspartame is one of the most deadly brain destroying substances around, and it's been obviously kept secret or has been the FDA has been involved in making sure that people no longer know or can do anything about the destructiveness of those kind of chemicals. But there are so many out there. Just the pharmaceutical industry is pouring an enormous amount of outdated drugs that can no longer be put out in the market because they've basically they're outdated and they're no longer working. So they're pouring them into the water supply. So you're literally drinking drugs. You're drinking drugs. They're dissolved in the water.
Here's an email from Gary. Gary is somewhere in California, saying, I'm enjoying the show. Thank you for being on, Andreas and Patrick. And I have a hypothyroid. And Andreas, it is epidemic, the amount of emails and calls we get about low thyroid in this country. What is your opinion why it is such a rampant problem, and what kind of things can folks do dietary-wise to boost the thyroid?
There can be many, many different causes of hypothyroidism, but the most common is lymph drainage problems. Yes, because again, when you look at a person who has a hypothyroid, you look at their belly area, you'll find there is a protrusion, there is an enlargement, there is some lymph congestion. They may even feel when they touch in the belly button area, there is an area of hardness or tightness. And so this is called the lymphedema. and that's in the so-called cisterna chili vessel. That's the main lymph drainage center of the body. And it is draining the metabolic waste products from all the organs from the rib cage down, including the reproductive organs, the liver, spleen, stomach, pancreas, the liver, small intestine, large intestine, and the legs, and then the testicles in the men, and the prostate, and in the women the uterus and the ovaries. So everything from the rib cage down has to go through that lymph center. And if your food is not digested well and you add more toxins to that area, then the lymph vessel, cisterna chili vessel, becomes overtaxed. And in order to neutralize some of the toxins, it holds on to fluid, lymph fluid, and that becomes harder. That means it becomes edemic. So the major lymph drainage duct that runs from here, from the middle part of the abdomen, all the way up to your throat, is called the thoracic duct. And the thoracic duct drains the thyroid. So if you are having lymph congestion in the belly area, then the thoracic duct gets clogged up too, and the lymph drainage from the thyroid that tries to get rid of all the daily produced metabolic waste products, such as urea, ammonia, uric acid, oxalic acid, and so on, they are staying back in the thyroid. So the thyroid is actually suffocating in its own waste. And it can start becoming a little bigger, and it can get enlarged because of that problem. And then the thyroid hormone starts going out of balance.
Very interesting. And some foods or some things we can do to get it boosted up again?
Well, a lot of people are taking recourse to iodine in kelp food or with some other supplements. Ideally, it's best not to. But once you have progressed to a certain level, then you may want to take recourse to that. But the foods that are always highly stimulating, that are stimulating the insulin secretion, are the meat foods. They are the greatest insulin stimulants. So anything that is overstimulating the body can eventually cause those gastrointestinal problems. Now, one thing that we haven't mentioned is that the thyroid is controlled by melatonin mostly. Melatonin is a very powerful brain hormone that is secreted in the evening at around 9:30, provided your eyes are shut, you don't see any light. That means there is no light shining on your skin or your eyes, and you're going to sleep. So when you make melatonin, the melatonin literally regulates the thyroid function, and the thyroid controls all the other endocrine organs. So it's a very, very powerful sequence of effects. So the boss is not the thyroid, the melatonin is the boss of the thyroid. So you want to make sure that your sleep cycle is such that you sleep before 10 o'clock, so that you make enough melatonin so that your thyroid can function at a normal level.
And we need to be in bed by 10 to make the melatonin.
Yes.
Is that right?
If you go to bed at 11, then because peak secretions of melatonin are at around midnight, 1 o'clock. So if you go to bed at 11 or 11:30 like that, you only make about half of the melatonin that your body is supposed to make, and that's not good enough to keep the thyroid functioning. Plus, your body needs a lot of give up a lot of blood to the liver, and the liver works between 10 and 2 more than any other time of the night. And so the liver is like a sponge. It is filling up with an enormous amount of blood, and it gets the blood from the back of the brain and gets it from the digestive system and from the muscles and from the bones. So you don't need the blood there. You need it in the liver, so the liver can work with it. And if you are not doing that, you create blood problems, which can again interfere with the thyroid. A lot of toxins get caught in the thyroid tissue if you're not removing the toxins from the blood.
So that's why it's a good idea to try to have your evening meal no later than about 6 or so you have a chance to digest that food.
And to have the lightest meal in the evening, because otherwise your body is struggling to try to get rid of that undigested food because, the digestive ability is only about 10-15% of what it is at lunchtime. So if you eat a heavy meal in the evening, it's just tough, bothering your stomach and your intestines, and the body will eventually try to get as much blood there as possible to get rid of the undigested food.
So we actually have less hydrochloric acid at night than we do during the day.
Oh, yes.
Really?
There's hardly anything going on in the digestive system because, again, the body needs the blood in the liver. It's not supposed to be on a high stimulate. You need stimulation to digest food. So if you eat a lot of food at night, then you divert the energy and the resources and the blood from the most important organ in the body, the liver, the biggest factory in the body, the liver. And then the liver cannot do its 500 different jobs.
Here's an email from Bill. Please ask Andreas about benefits of using betaine hydrochloric acid to boost up the digestive acids when eating meat or digestive enzymes.
The problem is once you start using crutches like that, you will become dependent on them. The other problem is when you introduce a lot of hydrochloric acid, and you don't have enough bile coming out of your liver, then the hydrochloric acid can literally damage your lower intestines. Hydrochloric acid is very caustic.
Yeah, very.
So it can burn holes into your intestines. You can get a leaky gut, literally. So I would not advise to take just one thing like this because, yes, it makes sense. If you want to eat meat, add more hydrochloric acid. But the problem is that you will have more disturbances in the lower intestines. So you don't win by adding one thing or another. Many people take digestive enzymes. Very, very popular now. So, use the enzymes so that it does digest your food. The issue again is that you're missing out on the bile. Now, the reason why people don't digest their food well anymore because there's not enough bile coming out of the bile ducts in the liver. They're clogged up. So the intrahepatic gallstones block the bile flow. Instead of making 1.5 quarts of bile per day, which we're supposed to, many people make a cupful. And that's not good enough to stimulate the secretion of hydrochloric acid in the stomach, which bile is responsible. If there's a feedback mechanism, how much bile is coming out, that's how much hydrochloric acid will collaborate with the secreted bile.
So the bile is what makes the hydrochloric acid do its thing.
Yes. So if you make less bile, it's a disadvantage to make too much hydrochloric acid because it will cause problems to your intestines. It will start digesting them. So your body is very, very controlling of making sure if one thing doesn't work well, the body will curb back on another one as well to protect you. It's not that many people say, well, I'm aging, I'm growing older, I make less hydrochloric acid, I need to supplement. That's not really how it works. You look at what is blocked in the body because there are people that are 100 years old. They have perfect digestion. They never had any health problems. They never saw a doctor. I just saw a recent show on that, centenarians. They're riding horses and they're in the field and they're working. They never use eyeglasses. They don't have any vision problems or hearing problems. They are laughing all the time. They're very happy. So what is aging really? Aging is accumulated toxins, waste products, bile ducts getting clogged up, the blood vessel walls getting thicker and thicker, the lymph system being clogged up. People put on weight because of that, first in the waist area and then in the rest of the body as the lymph is not drained from other parts of the body as well. So all those different issues, they are related to gastrointestinal disturbances, which can be rectified. Cleaning the body, cleaning the main organs of elimination, the liver, kidneys, and the large intestine, and then changing the diet to the point that the body is actually happy to digest these foods and capable of digesting the food, making the main meal at lunchtime instead of in the evening. That will get rid of a lot of undigested food, you will have much better digestion and assimilation of those nutrients, and in the same stroke, you will have probably normal levels of hydrochloric acid. Many people have heartburn when they eat a heavy evening meal. It's natural to have heartburn if you eat a heavy evening meal because there is naturally less hydrochloric acid in the evening.
Yeah. Very interesting. Now, you obviously, after listening to you for some other shows, and this one, Andreas Moritz, are an advocate of a vegetarian diet. Are there some tricks that people that are going to be vegetarians need to do, or some certain steps that they should add to their regimen to ensure that they're getting everything that they need to get?
I've written a book. It's pretty comprehensive. It's about 550 pages. It's called Timeless Secrets of Health and Rejuvenation. But Chapter 6 in that book is really answering that question so well, because there are so many different things that maybe need to be considered, like your body type. There are different body types. There are the thin body types that move very quickly, they talk very quickly, and they have dry skin, they have very thin bones, and then there are heavy body type. That means the muscular ones, the ones that have a lot of connective tissue, a lot of fluid in the body, a lot of oily skin, and so very, very shiny skin. And so there are very different body types. And there's the Pitta type, who can be recognized by their red hair, for example, in Caucasian white people. So red hair, very fair skin, reddish skin. So each person digests food in a different way. So not all food is good for everyone. Each person requires sort of some differences. If you give the red, hot Pitta type a lot of chili pepper to eat, he will go out of balance in no time. You want to give the cooling foods to that person, whereas you want to give a Vata type who always feels cold if he's unbalanced, cold hands, cold feet. Even in the summer, you want to give them the warming foods or heating foods. That means foods that have heating qualities. Doesn't necessarily mean the temperature. But there are certain foods that have cooling effects that calm down the heat or increase the heat. So it's important to know a little bit that there are foods that have different effects on different people, and that will make a big difference to one's health. Whereas if you eat like everything, it's there is no animal on the planet that can eat everything.
Yeah, you just eat whatever you want. What about juicing and fasting? Folks talk a lot about that. Do you think that it's good for us to really not eat any food for a certain period of time, a week or so? Or?
There's one body type that can afford it. That's the Kapha body type. The other body types, it's a little bit dodgy.
Kapha is the more heavy and thick and something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a Vata type, the thin body type, they're like typically like those that are walking down the sort of the runway models.
Right.
Very thin, moving fast, very, very agile. And they look good in clothes, when that's why they are chosen. Now, if you give, if you have that Vata type fast, you can get really out of balance because the Vata type makes the least amount of bile. When you don't eat food, when you just fast on fluids without fat, they need a lot of fat in their diet. If they don't get it, their bile is drying out in the gallbladder. Now, to get the gallbladder running again, when it's dried its bile out during the fasting, that's a difficult job. Now, kaphas, they contain a lot more bile. Their gallbladder is a lot bigger. So they keep it there, and they have a lot more moisture in the body than the Vata types. So again, you can have a kapha body type. It will probably be good for them to skip a meal or skip a day, not eat anything, just have fluids. Then the Vata type and the Pitta type, they get very nervous if you don't give them the food. Yeah. They get angry.
Yeah. What about, a lot of folks have a hard time with complex carbohydrates, even with rice and potatoes and things like that, where they they just they go up and down, and it's a blood sugar thing. What is out of whack there where they can't eat these kind of carbohydrates?
Well, usually it is because they're eating also protein. So then the carbohydrates get fermented and they just don't get digested. The other thing is if you have been you're not digesting food very well, if you're not making enough bile, to digest carbohydrates you need to have fat. If there's not fat in the carbohydrates, let's say rice or potatoes, then that food will run into your small intestine in record time undigested. So when you have the fat in that food, but you have not enough bile coming out of your liver, then you don't digest the fat, and therefore you don't digest the carbohydrate, and that's why you have digestive problems in that respect as well. So again, it goes back to the liver.
So you're suggesting what we want to have fat with carbohydrates?
Oh, absolutely.
Like what kind of fat with rice? Oh, butter maybe?
Yeah, oils like olive oil, coconut oil, ghee, butter, unsalted butter is better than salted butter. There's palm oil, coconut oil. Yeah, so they're cold-pressed oils. That means natural oils. But in the evening, it's better to avoid oil. So butter or ghee is better.
I see. So that's easier than the olive oil or something.
Oil takes a long time to leave the stomach, so you have something leaving, the food like a vegetable soup with some butter or ghee in it, and maybe a bread with some butter on it. That's a light evening meal that will be digested fairly quickly, and then you sleep like a baby.
What about castor oil? Necessary?
Castor oil is a laxative.
I'm sorry, not castor oil, cod liver oil. Sorry.
What is cod liver oil?
Cod liver oil, yes. Sir.
Cod liver oil. It has a vitamin A in it, and it recently was found that cod liver oil, because of its high vitamin A, causes liver damage. So you don't want to. It's a poison. It acts like a poison. So you don't want to go near cod liver oil. It's been disputed, its beneficial effects. So recently, there are some serious incidents of death, or the chance of dying increases by 16% when you take vitamin A.
So the liver doesn't like cod liver oil at all?
No. It's when you think of liver, liver is an organ that is trapping or taking out poisons and harmful substances, noxious substances. And if you take, let's say, that applies to all animals because it's the detoxifying organ in all animals. So if you take substance, some part of the liver, or a substance that is formed by the liver, like cod liver oil, then it is toxic to the body because of its vitamin A. Vitamin A should not be taken as a vitamin. It should be formed, allow the body to form it from carotenoids, from keratin, things like vegetables, carrots, or green leafy vegetables, or colored vegetables. So these are, that's where the liver will make its own vitamin A, and it should be left to the liver. If you introduce vitamin A, as in cod liver, high concentrations, you are creating an imbalance. You may interfere with the vitamin D production as well.
What about flax, hemp, those kinds of oils?
Hemp oil is great. If you had the distilled hemp oil, you would actually be able to cure cancer within a couple of weeks.
Distilled?
Yes, but it's illegal. It's from marijuana. So it's the oil. It's like the essential oil from the hemp.
Oh, I've never even heard of that, distilled.
Yes, from the hemp plant. I hope one day it will be legalized, and then this remedy will become popular.
What does that do to the body for cancer? How does that fit in?
It will basically dissolve tumors. It literally breaks them up.
Distilled hemp oil?
Yeah, the real hemp oil, not the hemp oil that is from the hemp nut.
Oh, where's it from?
From the hemp plant, which is marijuana.
Oh, marijuana.
Yes.
I see. Oh, could that be the reason why there's been so much stuff against marijuana?
Exactly.
Never heard that before.
Yes.
I'll be darned. So they actually make oil from that marijuana plant, the one with THC.
Right.
And
you distill it out of the plant, and so it leaves that oil. It's like an essential oil. You don't need very much, but it can virtually clear up any cancer in the body.
Wow. And it'll just, do they do that in some parts of the world? Do they use?
Well, there are some people that do it illegally, yes.
Yeah.
Of course, in the Netherlands and in Zurich, Switzerland, you can have access to marijuana. So, you can smoke it near certain places. It's public. You're allowed. It's legal. It's legalized, and it's used as medicine more and more. So, there's so much medicine in these things that have been forbidden. There's much more damage, of course, from smoking cigarettes that have been polluted or have been chemicalized.
Sure.
So there are like 110 deadly chemicals in cigarettes. Now the tobacco plant is a healing plant.
Yes,
so
I've heard that.
If they were used like the Indians used to, the Native Americans used to use them, you could heal a lot of health problems. But they basically turned it into something terrible.
Where do you think this is all going with the freedoms of the health in health in this country? Do you see some things that you're real concerned about?
Currently, it's going down the drain because there will be legislation introduced and more that will outpace the access to natural remedies. And the Codex, you have probably talked about that. Is going to make sure when I speak to people in other countries, I get people calling me from all over the world, and in European countries like Norway is completely codicized.
Is it really?
Yes, so that you cannot get natural things. Germany, very difficult to get natural products. And vitamins can no longer be received in higher dosage, so you have to get a doctor to prescribe them. And the same attempt is being done here. So you will find more and more the FDA coming down on people that are making statements that certain things are have a positive value, especially if they have been. If there's evidence by scientific research that substantiates that. So if, for example, cherries, there's a study, to show that cherries help with arthritis. So you're not allowed to do that. As soon as you state that on a website and you're saying cherry extract has been shown to be very beneficial for arthritis, and if the FDA is going to find out, they're going to shut down your website. Because you're not allowed to say that, because it will turn cherry into a drug. Only drugs can heal.
So
foods are not allowed to heal. As soon as you say
food
heals, it's a drug.
But it looks like
it's illegal.
It seems to me that then where it's all going to go, though, we're all going to have to learn by necessity, the mother of invention, to use foods to heal, because that's the only thing that we're going to be able to get, probably.
Right. Yeah. The food will still, but they are trying to contaminate the food as well, of course.
It's tough, yeah.
So but there will be an end to that, because the whole economic system, the way it is running right now, is collapsing very fast.
It sure is.
And with it will be the collapse of the medical industry. So you will see a lot of changes in that respect, that people will be forced to go back to the backyard and grow their own things again, and become self-sufficient, and then have a different type of economy growing out of this that will be supporting, that people support one another and not take from one another.
So you see that coming?
Oh, big time.
Yeah, I think so too.
And fast.
Yeah, it is happening fast. And we're going to do it tomorrow night about the homesteading and the gardening tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Andreas, it's always fun having you here. Thanks for spending some time with us. Once again, your website is ener-chi.com, Ener-Chi.com, with a dash in there, right?
Yes.
Yeah, with the dash in there, and you have all your stuff, and you got some cool products, and people can do consultations and books, and
Yes.
All right, sir. Well, please stay out of trouble, and if you need something, you let us know, will you?
Okay, thanks so much, Patrick.
Andreas, thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
It's a joy. Andreas Moritz, Ener-Chi, Ener-Chi.com. A lot of books there, too, and you can really bone up and get the whole story. And he mentioned that one about the vegetarian diet. Which one was it? Was the Simple Steps to Total Health. He's got a whole, I think he said in chapter 6 for you vegetarians that you want to just really kind of check that one out and make sure that you're getting everything that you really need. We're going to see you tomorrow night and talk about the Constitution, because it is a brave new world out there. We do it every Tuesday at 7 o'clock about the Constitution, liberty, those kinds of issues. And then at 8 o'clock on Tuesday, we do more things in the way of physical sustainability and taking care of ourselves. We've been doing a lot of gardening shows, and I think we're talking with a gentleman all about homesteading and just give you some tips on how to take care of ourselves. And then the Money Show every Wednesday with Andrew Goss. And then Thursday, Dr. Richard Massey, and he's a good one. We're going to be taking your calls. Ask Dr. Massey. And some more surprises this week. I'll see you then on Open Phone Friday at 7 o'clock on Friday. So that's our week. I hope you'll come by sometime this week. My name is Patrick Timpone. I love you all very much. I'll see you tomorrow night at 7 o'clock on OneRadioNetwork.com. From the hill country of Texas, this is One Radio Network.